Oh, the many masks we wear. That barely fit. It's like it's for a child. That Velcro. Whew, that was rough. My hair. Okay. This glove's ridiculous too. Okay. Full disclosure. This is part 2 of my little 3-part series. Might end up being 4. I talk a lot. Talking about mental illness and my journey. So, yes, the many masks we wear, indeed. Spider-Man is still the best. So I wanted to talk about my backstory and my onset. Not as happy with the topic. So, in middle school, high school, I was a good student. Was a good kid. Not much of a troublemaker. Did the best I could with grades and did great. Played some basketball, played tennis in high school. In my sophomore year of high school, my uncle became quite ill. And within 3 months of finding out about his sickness, he died. I was 15, 16, I think it was 15. And it shook me, and I didn't deal with it appropriately. Still this day, it shakes me up. I stuffed it down and suppressed it, and it turns out that is all that was needed to be the catalyst for my genetic mental illness to come out. It was thought at the time that it was depression, and it was. And I flipped around to various doctors at the urging of my mom, and she was right, needed to get some help. It was really thought originally that I just need to pick myself up by my bootstraps and just handle it, take care of it, and just move on, or it's just emotional moodiness of a teenager. I wasn't an especially moody teenager, but in this case, I kind of was. I remember just with my head down on my desk and my teacher asking if everything was okay, and I just blew it off and said it was girl trouble, which I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I have a lovely wife now, so it worked out. But I was down. I was out. There was no good reason for it. I had a loving family and great friends, and like I said, I was doing well in school, in sports, and it hit me. So was off and on some different meds. Saw some psychiatrists and counselors, and I hate to just fast forward to the interesting part, but it seemed to be just depression, and it was kind of relatively managed until I went to college. And actually, as I say that, I realize that there was kind of an episode that my dad reminded me of recently, later in high school, that seemed to be a little more than depression. So, based on my prior video talking about the fact that I have bipolar disorder, that's where this is going. So I went to college. I went to Penn State. That's Pennsylvania State University. A lot of people think I said Kent State. Nothing wrong with Kent State whatsoever. Just wanted to clarify. But I kind of cracked in college. A lot of people come out of their shell and they're more relaxed, or they party a lot. And while I did a lot of that, my personality all through high school was pretty straight-laced and serious and, nose in the books. And I kind of swung the other way completely with the pendulum and was just kind of totally carefree and do whatever and way too free. I don't know how it all went down, but what I do remember is that I called my dad and mom from school, and I just remember just laughing hysterically 1 second, and then I was crying the next. And it was just this back and forth, back and forth. And my parents knew something was very wrong. I feel like I always screw up the details in terms of the years because it's been a long time, but there were kind of episodes earlier in my career at college career at Penn State, but also my junior year. That's when it all kind of came together and my parents brought me home. So that sounds long-winded, but it's in an effort to get to the next stage here. So I got home and I was on meds and I was just trying to work and not be in school at the time. And I ended up, meeting a friend that kind of convinced me that I should go off my meds, kind of cold turkey. And I don't blame this person at all. And I think it's really led me to where I am in this journey. But please, 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 please do not go off your meds without the advisement of a psychiatrist, especially cold turkey and just dropping off completely without tapering down. So I went off the meds, cold turkey, and spiked into a manic episode. So you guys have probably heard of bipolar disorder, like I said, or manic-depressive disorder. I think depression is pretty well understood, at least conceptually, theoretically. But I want to touch on that real quick because I get into mania as a topic and then depression just gets kind of left by the wayside. So depression isn't your standard run-of-the-mill, you banged up your knee and you can't play a basketball game or 2 or 3. Granted, that can be devastating, especially on a bigger level for a longer duration of time. So I don't want to knock that at all. But the kind of depression I'm talking about is just devastating despair. Just picture yourself on a raft on the ocean, the blackest night you can think of, not a star in the sky. And then your raft just disintegrates and you go into the water and you just sink and you sink and you sink and you sink for what seems like an eternity. There's no hope, not eating a lot of the time. Sometimes it's a lot of eating, sleeping a ton or not sleeping, and just hopelessness, complete and utter bitter hopelessness. So that's your one side of your bipolar coin. The other side is the mania, and that is literally the opposite. There are different poles. Mania is high, elated kind of feelings, which on paper sounds great, but it's not so great. So I'm going to get into detail on that, but there was a second time I went off my meds cold turkey because I didn't get the point, get the idea that that is a horrible thing to do, a horrible plan. Again, don't do it. I went out of my way to go cold turkey on meds a third time. So I'm going to explain what it's like to have a manic episode in my most extreme time. So 3 times manic episodes, each time more and more extreme. In 2008, 10 years ago, I went out to California, was going to try and start a new life there. I'm not sure what my full plan was, just to kind of get away. I went out there and it was 75, 80 degrees every day and beautiful sunshine every single day. And I'm coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio, home of 6 months of winter. So as a result, this felt like paradise. And because everything was good, I felt great. It was beautiful outside. It was a new adventure. I decided, yeah, great idea. You don't need the meds. You feel good. So I went off the meds cold turkey, third time. So mania sounds incredible to an extent, but it is terrifying and honestly far more dangerous and far worse than the depression, in my opinion, at least to a degree. So mania, your mind's revving a mile a minute. I mean, just an incredible amount of information is flying through your brain, but none of it really makes sense. I became very brash and harsh, and it was kind of like being drunk, but you were very articulate and could be very cutting with your words. I ended up having to have my mom and dad come out to California to rescue me from this episode. I was wearing the Spider-Man mask when this video started, and if anyone's seen Spider-Man 3, where Spider-Man wears the black suit for a while, that's essentially what it was. I like to think I'm a friendly neighborhood Justin, not the kind of brash, arrogant jerk I became when I was manic. So that was my black suit, Spider-Man. I want to mention too that mental illness is not something I chose. It's not something anybody chose. In the first video, I said that 1 in 5 people will have or have at some point a mental illness in the US. It's not something that I wanted, clearly, but it's just like heart disease, diabetes, just something you have. And my disclaimer that's a little late is that many of my speeches that I've done publicly haven't had a solid direction in terms of, note cards and reading off of stuff. Right now I have a little guide to try and keep me on track. But since the last 20 years have been kind of scrambled eggs, I'm just trying to be as real as I can. And I hope that works out. So, the mania that I experienced in California, I was working out excessively. I was drinking an astronomical amount of water, which I still do because of my meds, but this was over the top. Wasn't eating. And I somehow managed to lose 29 pounds in 3 weeks. And at that rate, I probably could have died. It was an incredible time, incredibly terrible time. I remember I love my superheroes. I was running around downtown Pasadena so loudly in my sandals that I was inadvertently terrifying people because of how loudly they were clapping on the ground. I have stories galore from that time. I was in a video game store, and I had no money, mind you. I had very little money out in California, and this video game store, it created such an injustice in not refunding this couple's money that I took it upon myself to walk them myself to an ATM to extract $40 to make this wrong right. My mind was going a mile a minute, like I said, and to give me an idea of the artistry that started to develop. Now, we all make crazy notes on postcards and stuff sometimes, or post-it notes. But this was the beginning, kind of clean, not too bad, but kind of chaotic, just words everywhere. Every idea that I had, I write songs and, I had ideas about movies and stuff when I was out there. Everything is pure gold. Well, this was another one. What's amazing to me is that I can read all of this and largely go through it and understand it. 2008. Like that's not right. So my parents had to come out to California. One of my best friends, longest running friends in second grade, Ben, actually called my mom, I believe it was on or around my birthday that year, and called my mom and just said, he was well aware of this. He was my roommate at Penn State. He just said, you probably need to come out. So I was arrested, kind of, by this police force called Hope in Pasadena. and I thought it was awesome. It was the Homeless Outreach Psychiatric Evaluation Unit. I ended up having to go to a mental hospital in Agoura Hills for several days, and then I was released because I could, because of money constraints, and given a $5 bill to get home. And I was, I think, an hour and a half away. Small sidebar, I had been hospitalized for mental illness once prior. So with my 3 major manic episodes, I probably should have been hospitalized 3 times. You can ask my parents, they would agree. But once was in a mental hospital. The second time, they kept me at home, just kind of under lock and key. The third time was this massive episode in California. There are so many details that I've jumped over and jumped around. But the point is, I have fought my mental illness. I've fought my diagnosis for way too many years. Until 2008, and coming back from California and trying to regain sanity, literally, I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know what was going on. And I apologize. I literally got so swept up in what I was thinking there and just kind of the flashbacks of it all that I kind of lost track of what I was saying. What I could do is go and edit this and post, but I'm not going to. I have taken so many different kind of medications and so many different dosages. It's not like other medications and other illnesses that you can just throw a med at it that works for everyone for the most part, or an alternative if there's an allergy, and then it just works. I've been on, like I said, dozens of different medications in different combinations, different dosages. I've seen many, many psychiatrists and counselors. And it took me until after 2008 to really accept all this, that this is the real deal, and I can't keep screwing up my life and screwing up others and inconveniencing my parents or friends or worrying them. And I can't believe how all over the place I felt this was, even though I had kind of a mild guideline. But the point is, it's been a rough ride, 20 years. And I look forward to divulging more in the next video about how things have turned around post this terrifying adventure. But I want to leave with this. The Spider-Man quote, the original trilogy. With great power comes great responsibility. Mental illness is my gift and my curse. I believe that my story has power and the power to help others, and I want to help you too. Please stay tuned for part 2 of my story to explore where I am now and where I've been since 2008 in the aftermath of California. Thanks so much for watching.